What's up, everybody? My name is Ivan, and today we're going to be watching more of these animated horror stories, guys. So this one is called Office Horror Stories. I'm guessing this one's going to be about actually, I'm not really guessing what this one's going to be about, but remember that other one that we did before with the Thorn Baby? Oh gosh, I don't even want to talk about that one. Man, is that one... I don't even want to talk about that one. But without a further ado, let's watch this. Office Horror Story presents.
It was Friday night. Jessica, as always, lingered at work only not to listen to the piercing silence of her apartment. After the death of Max, her young husband, Jessica did not like to return home. A working sheet froze on the monitor screen, but Jess just tiredly looked at her and Max's wedding photo on her desk. Tears stuck in a tight lump in her throat and were ready to pour out of her eyes. How often did she have dreams of reuniting with her deceased husband? But she was too young, beautiful, and healthy. Suddenly, the table under her elbows vibrated, and she heard heavy footsteps somewhere on the other side of the office.
Get under the table.
But he left about an hour ago. Probably security guard is just making a detour.
Oh heck no, get
Jessica
under the table.
often stayed up late, so this did not alert her. She returned back to work on the table, and another hour passed.
Bro.
The guard's footsteps were no longer audible, and dead silence reigned in the building, broken only by the sound of her keyboard. Getting very tired, she looked at the clock. Oh, it's already midnight. Again, I stayed up so late. Suddenly, overwhelming fatigue swept over Jessica, and she lowered her head to the table to rest and fell into a heavy sleep. In her dream, Max came to her for the first time in all the months after the tragedy. He was very calm and looked peaceful.
No.
Jessica said, "I miss you so much, love. Why did you leave me? Why did you die so early?"
Oh.
Died? What are you saying? I just left for a short while and very soon we will see each other. I promise you that. But I was at your funeral. I remember. Max laughed. A loud sharp knock woke Jess, and she jumped to her feet in fright. The office was windy, and her hair was very disheveled.
Oh.
It's strange because I did not remove the hairpin. The cold February air was blowing to the bone, and Jess realized that she was also standing in a pitch darkness. She saw in the rays of moonlight that the window was broken.
Oh no. Oh no. No. Oh, heck no.
Our office is on the 25th floor. What the hell? I need to leave before I catch a cold. I wonder if the guard is still here. Hey, is there anyone here? Without understanding why, she began to look around in fright, searching for a way out. The inner voice screamed, "Run!" She was not mistaken. The floor under her feet began to shake, and the wind turned into a real hurricane. Jessica's heart pounded, and she rushed to the nearest exit.
Oh.
The path to the elevator seemed endless. When she finally ran into the elevator and the doors closed behind her, she still heard loud howls of the wind. Going lower and lower, she felt growing despair rising in her chest.
Oh no.
Finally, ground floor. When the elevator door opened, Jessica was seized with chilling horror. There was a wall in front of her, made of soil. She froze for a second and then, in horror, began to dig the icy soil with her hands, trying to get to oxygen. Her head was spinning, and she was digging faster and faster. Until she came across something solid. A door? A tree? What is it? Oh my God. A coffin?
Oh. The coffin.
She cleaned the soil, took a deep breath, and opened the coffin with shaking hands.
Oh. Oh heck no. Again? She was dreaming? Bro.
Oh, what a disgusting dream.
Another one? Bro.
Huh?
But that glass is still there.
Hi everyone, hope you enjoyed this story. Don't forget to...
Bro. Oh. That one was really terrifying. That one was actually very, I understood that one. She just kept on dreaming about his husband. It was a pretty good story. But now, the next one is this one.
One of my relatives.
Okay, this one's called Digital Camera. A scary story. How is this one gonna be scary? Let's see. We gotta see if this one's scary or not.
One of my relatives passed away suddenly. I never met the woman. She had a daughter who was 4 years old. The little girl's name was Yuki. Her father wasn't able to raise her on his own, so he asked my aunt to take care of her. The little girl refused to be alone and never left my aunt's side. It started to become a problem. My aunt couldn't go anywhere without Yuki. She constantly needed attention. Even my aunt's own daughter started to get jealous. One day, my aunt told me she had to go out of town for a couple of days and asked if I would babysit the little girl for her. I said it would be my pleasure. I lived alone and I could do with some company. A few days later, my aunt dropped Yuki off at my apartment. As she was leaving, she took the little girl aside and said, "Yuki, please be good. Behave yourself." When my aunt was gone, I tried to talk to Yuki and play some games with her, but the little girl's behavior was very strange. She had a teddy bear tucked tightly under her arm and never let go of it. She never smiled. She never spoke. All she ever did was sit quietly in the corner and stare at the wall. It made me kind of uneasy. I was trying to find something that would entertain her. I had just bought a new digital camera, and I decided to let Yuki play with my old one. When she saw the camera, her eyes lit up. I showed her how to use it, and she went around my apartment taking pictures of everything. There was a bright smile on her face. That evening, I discovered how difficult Yuki was to deal with. Whenever I tried to leave the room, she started crying and screaming out my name. I couldn't leave her alone, or she would create a huge fuss. She even insisted on going to the bathroom with me, which was very embarrassing. At bedtime, she refused to stay in the spare room and insisted on sleeping in my bed. I read her a bedtime story, and after a while I managed to get her to go to sleep. That was when I noticed her teddy bear. One of its legs was charred and blackened, as if it had been burned. It made me wonder. In the middle of the night, I was awoken by a strange noise. When I turned over, I saw that there was something wrong with Yuki. The little girl's body was trembling and shaking. Her eyes were wide open, her teeth were chattering, and tears were streaming down her cheeks. I held her close and asked her what was wrong. "She's looking at me again," she mumbled. "Who is?" I asked in surprise. "The dark woman," replied Yuki. She wouldn't say anything more. I tried to tell her it was just her imagination, but she kept shaking her head and whimpering. It took me a long time to get her to go back to sleep. The next day, Yuki was fine again. She loved playing with my digital camera. When it was time for her to go home, I told her she could keep it. Yuki hugged me. Although she didn't say anything, I could tell she was overjoyed. I dropped the little girl off at my aunt's house and stayed to have a cup of tea. My aunt thanked me for taking care of Yuki. We spent a while chatting at the kitchen table. "Poor little thing," said my aunt. "She hasn't said a word since her mother died." I couldn't control my curiosity. "How did Yuki's mom die?" I asked. A strange look came over my aunt's face. "She died in a fire." "How did the fire start?" I asked. "Well," my aunt hesitated, unwilling to talk about it. "It's a very sad story. She committed suicide." Yuki's mother was a very troubled woman. She poured gasoline over herself and lit a match. She burned herself alive. "Oh my God," I exclaimed. "How horrible." "Yes," said my aunt. Her family was so shocked they hushed it up and pretended it was an accident. We had a small funeral, but only close relatives were invited. Yuki wasn't there. She doesn't even know her mother is dead. She thinks her mother is just on a long holiday. We haven't had the heart to tell her the truth. "Poor Yuki," I murmured. My aunt nodded her head sadly. "Poor Yuki." A few days after that, Yuki died. My aunt was trying to change Yuki's behavior. At night, she forced the little girl to sleep in her own bedroom. Even though Yuki screamed and cried, my aunt left her there alone and locked the door. In the morning, she found Yuki lying motionless in bed. The poor little girl was dead. Nobody could understand what had happened. The coroner couldn't determine a cause of death. There was the mark on her body. She was perfectly healthy. She had just mysteriously died during the night. There was no explanation. After the funeral, I went back to my aunt's house. Everyone was very sad. She returned the digital camera I had given to Yuki. I took it home with me. It was something to remember her by. The memory card was full of random photos that Yuki had taken. I browsed through them, wiping a tear from my eye. There were pictures of my apartment, Pictures of my aunt's house, pictures of flowers, dogs, toys, candy. Silly pictures that a child would take.
Oh.
Then I came to the last picture, and it made my blood run cold. My hands were trembling. I wanted to scream, but nothing would come out. The timestamp on the photo showed that it had been taken on the night Yuki died. Here is the last picture that the poor little girl ever took with my digital camera.
Oh. Yo, that one was freaky. That one was really... One last one, okay, guys? I'm gonna do one more. It's this one up here. Okay.
There was a woman named Suzanne who lived in an old house on a cliff overlooking the sea. She was divorced from her husband. Suzanne had been deeply depressed ever since her son Bobby drowned. She was devastated by the loss and felt like she couldn't go on. As time went by, Suzanne began reading books about black magic and Satanism. The more she read, the more she became immersed in the world of the occult. It was like an addiction. She came across a spell that was supposed to be able to resurrect the dead. It was Halloween night. She drew a pentagram on her floor of her living room. Lighting some black candles, she stood in the middle of the pentagram, and at the stroke of midnight, she read aloud from an ancient satanic book. Come, fulfill my desire, and do my bidding in accordance with my will. I conjure thee in the name of Satan, to whom all evil is obedient, by which name the earth is overthrown, the seas turn black, the ground shudders, fire is quenched, and all host of things in heaven and hell do tremble. Lucifer, Prince of Darkness, return my son who drowned by accident. Return him to me now. I command thee. Afterwards, Suzanne blew out the candles. She collapsed to her knees and began to weep. All of a sudden, she heard a faint scratching on her front door. Cautiously, she walked over to the door and listened. The scratching grew louder. "Who's there?" she cried. There was a long silence, and then she heard a voice whisper, "Mommy?" Suzanne opened the door and was shocked to see a small boy crouched on the doorstep. He was soaking wet and shivering with cold. "Bobby," she cried. "It's you! It's really you!" She hurriedly brought him inside and put a towel around him, trying to warm him up. His teeth were chattering and his hands were shaking. "I was so lonely and desolate without you, Bobby," she said. "Where were you? What happened?" "I remember water," he said. "Cool water. And I couldn't breathe. I woke up and couldn't remember who I was. I walked
so
and
she
walked
did
in
bring
the
him
rain.
back.
These people found me
my
and they took me in."
gosh. Hold up. Okay, guys, don't believe this story because it's not true. You can't bring somebody back to life. I'm sorry, but you can't.
I didn't know if I was alive or dead. "You're alive, Bobby," she cried. "You're really alive." "Was I a good boy, Mommy?" Bobby asked. "Of course you were a good boy," she replied. "Did you love me, Mommy?" Bobby asked. "I do love you," she replied, "from the bottom of my heart." "Were you nice to me, Mommy?" Bobby asked. "Of course I was," she said. Bobby stared at her. It was a mean, angry stare, and there was a spiteful sneer on his face. It frightened Suzanne. "I want to play a game with you, Mommy," he cried. "Hide and seek."
No.
All of a sudden, he raced up the stairs. All of the lights in the house went out.
Oh,
"Bobby,
no.
what are you doing?" she cried. "Where are you?" There was
Oh,
no
no,
answer.
it's not his son.
"Bobby, stop this. I want you to come back right here."
She didn't bring
"Bobby,
him back.
please don't do this to
Yes, she-
Mommy. For the last time, what are you doing?" Just then she heard the boy's voice coming from the darkness. "Aren't you glad the lights are out, Mommy?" he said. "It makes the game more fun." "You're going to hurt yourself in the dark," Suzanne replied. Suzanne cautiously walked up the stairs, feeling her way in the darkness. "Bobby, stop this," she shouted. "You're making Mommy very angry." All of a sudden, the door burst open and Bobby was standing there, cackling like a maniac. In his hand, he held a long, sharp kitchen knife. "Let's play hide and seek now, Mommy," he shrieked. Suzanne recoiled in horror. Backing away, she tripped and went tumbling down the stairs. When she landed at the bottom, she looked up and saw her son coming down the stairs with the knife raised above his head. "You lied, Mommy," he said. "Bobby didn't really drown by accident. You know that. Bobby drowned himself. He couldn't stand the way you treated him, and he killed himself just to get away from you. Don't you see? Bobby didn't want to come back, Mommy. No, Bobby hates you, Mommy. He didn't want to come back, so he sent me instead." Just then, there was a flash of lightning and it lit up the house. For one terrible moment, Suzanne saw the face of the thing that had come back instead of Bobby.
Oh! Bro, that one was really scary. Actually, this one was actually pretty scary, so I'm not gonna lie. But I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, hit that subscribe button, please, if you haven't yet. If you want some more horror stories like this, just animated horror stories, let me know down in the comments below. And hit that like button too as well. And as always,